Greetings and welcome to the second episode on Unlocking the Matrix. Now this is going to blow your mind a little bit, I think. It's rather interesting seeing how what appears to be independent thoughts all coming to the same conclusions on so many things. And what is clearly showing is this synchronicity as where energies are connecting. Now, there's always been speculation with things like songs, for example, Hotel California having a hidden meaning. Indeed, it does. If you ask the band members, which has been done on interviews and things, what is the meaning, they say they have no idea. And they're not lying about that. When, particularly with the truth side, when we're looking at, it's said that often that the truth is put out there in plain sight. Now it also happens with songs as well. The imagination is a connection to a higher self, even if the person is not opened up enough to realise this. It is still, shall we say, remote writing through them. For example, Bohemian Rhapsody. There's several interpretations of what that song means, but the opening lines, "Open your eyes, look up to the skies and see." Now it's the spelling of the word see that is confusing people. It's the waters above from the waters below being described right there. That's just one example. So this leads me into the topic of this video. People have said to me before now, how do I get downloads? I can only tell you this from my own personal experience. So I'll give you the most recent one that sort of finally all clicked into place today. For some time I've been listening to a band called Hawkwind. I mean, big clue in the name there, wind and hawk. Reference to an eagle, and of course Enlil, Lord of the Air. And there's a particular album called the Xenon Codex, and it's quite fascinating what actually has come out of this. There's one song in particular on this album called Head. Again, nothing is ever coincidental. What I will say here, if you get a song coming into your head, there is a very good reason for it. This is how spiritual downloads work. It may just be one line in the song when you're listening to it. Now, it may be songs you are very familiar with, but you'll start to hear these in a different way, and there might be one line in that song, or it could even be a book, and there'll be a particular line that really stands out and resonates, because that is a spiritual message coming through. This is the wonder of all this, because that wasn't written specifically for you, or was it? Because everything is duality. So anyway, this song Head, the lyrics go as follows. I've actually managed to remember to write something down this time. The limits of the infinite have never been defined. The spirit lies in atrophy, in a state too late to unwind. Trophies on the back shelf, procreating all our race. Ideas of our fantasies on which all things are based. Now, based can also mean in base chakra. Collecting every prospect, rumbling through your tests with mannequin expressions, they end up like the rest. In those boots they're wired, with leaders in their flesh. Where are we? I've lost my place here. Picked up all prosperity and eternity repressed. What this is saying here is, if we don't learn by our mistakes and spiritually grow, we will just keep going round and round in eternity in this cycle. because that is where evolution is. And this is one of the things the dark side twists. They take the truth and give it a twist and then give it another twist. So when we're talking about evolution, it's evolution of the mind, not the physical body. All they've done is shunt the truth and placed it somewhere else. It's the same with the earth. You're not on the outside of a spinning ball. You're within the plane, within a ball of a magnetic field. They've just shifted you. And this is how darkness works with everything. Anyway, back to this song. So lead yourself to others, talk yourself to sleep. It's also superficial, no use for you to weep. So in other words, don't have regrets, because that's a negative energy. Then the final two lines of the song. So place your trust in science, for it has come so far. Now this is being ironical here. With necromancy lives forever, preserve it in a jar. Now necromancy is to do with death and magic spells. Look up the meaning of that one. That will give you a big clue. Preserve it in a jar. Now that is a reference to the embalming process where the pharaoh ascends to the stars, right there encapsulated in that song. But it goes better than this. I pulled up a playlist of it's 8 of the songs from this Xenon Codex album, and it tells a fantastic story in itself. So the first song is called The War I Survived, followed by Wastelands of Sleep, Neon Skyline, Tides, which is clearly a reference to the flood. I mean, Wastelands of Sleep, that is basically what it's talking about in creation in Genesis, after a massive reset, because we are coming to the end of the 5th age of humanity and entering in the 6th. This 5th version of humanity has been going for about 475,000 years. It is quite easy and can be accurately pinpointed by looking at ancient texts and positions of stars, and then using the archaeoastrology clock to pinpoint where they would be, and all these star movements are always predictable, and they always have been. That's also how you can tell that we're not moving. So after Tides heads off Palace Springs, which is sort of quite ironic in its title, followed by the song Heads, which I've just read the lyrics to. Then we have the mutation zone. Well, there's your transgender, your AI, all in place there. And the final song is Sword of the East. Well, where does this Christ come from in biblical text? It's always from the east. Always rises in the sun rises in the east. It's a reference to the sun in the sky. So this is how we get these downloads. Now, something else that piqued my interest was, what does Xenon mean? Now this is fascinating as well. Straight off, it has the chemical letters XE, so it's crossed energy, and it has the atomic number 54. Well, 5 and 4 makes 9. So think in terms of sacred geometry, from 0 to 9, everything is nothing, nothing is everything. So we're at an end with the 9. Now, what is very interesting about this Xenon is what it says further down. See if I can find it again. In November 1989, IBM scientists demonstrated a technology capable of manipulating individual atoms. The program, called IBM in Atoms, uses a scanning tunneling microscope to arrange 35 individual xenon atoms on a substrate of chilled crystal of nickel. I'll come back to that word nickel, to spell out the 3-letter company initialism. Now, those of you on the truth-seeking side will probably be very familiar with these 3-letter names like ABC, CNN, and so on, ITV, BBC. It was the first time atoms had been precisely positioned on a flat surface. So you've got manipulation of atoms, the atom, the anatomy. It's always the root word with these things. Now, nickel, you've got two words there. Nick, well, you've got Saint Nick, Santa Claus, Satan. You've got El, another name for Satan. So you've got two references to Satan just in the word nickel. Atom, Adam, it's the same word. We are made up of atoms, because the sound an atom makes when it explodes is a tum-tum, like the tom-tom. The Gospel of Thomas is another reference to this Tom thing. But anyway, I'm going off on a slight different angle there, but that is showing so much. I've also been looking into another aspect of this, which I'd like to share with you. When you think of the hunter who goes out and finds it a thrill and a sport to kill an innocent animal and then have it stuffed or mounted on the wall as a trophy. Well, did that song not say a trophy for a start? But that is the mentality and the nature of the dark side. So when they talk about the great library of Alexandria being destroyed, I can assure you that it was not destroyed. They would not want to get rid of that information because they need that information and to keep to themselves to then twist it to their advantage. It's breaking through this. So I am very much of the idea that there is an energy which is the source of their power in possibly something like a jar that could be unlocked and then shared with everybody symbolically. If it is kept in a jar like a genie in a bottle, it is trapped and it can be manipulated and exploited if it is held that way. Remember, everything is duality, so even when we talk about the jinn and the genie, there is good and bad in everything. It is not, this is bad, that is good. There is always a mirror opposite. This is how we can also defeat this, because we throw it back at them. We do not take part in aggressive action. So that is another segment on unlocking this matrix. There are so many other ways I intend to talk about this and explain so much, because I'm only a messenger and it would be equally wrong for me to keep this knowledge to myself, because that is not what I'm being channeled to. I'm being channeled so I can pass this on and try and explain it. And of course there are many other people doing the same thing. I would strongly suggest that you all look at the nature of the mechanism. Remember, the devil is in the details, so don't go into the end game play out of cancer, for example. Come right back to the source of it and what is causing it in the first place. Because you can treat somebody and you can do healing on somebody who's got cancer. It's nothing wrong with that. There are people who can do this as well. But it's tackling one of the many playouts of this. To kill a monster, you've got to cut its head off. That is the place we've got to go for. And as time is an illusion, because no matter where you are in this world, and no matter what time zone you're in, even if this was a live feed, you would be listening to this, if you're listening to it live, at the same time, regardless of what your time zone says. There is always far more than we perceive. Our field of vision and our five senses are just a tiny fraction. It is about 97-98%, because there's another 355 senses that are potentially waking to be unlocked from within. And you all have the power to do this, and I intend to take you through the process step by step. Some of you will say, well, that's crazy. Well, that's your choice whether you want to believe me or not believe me. I am just telling you what I am here to tell you. and then the rest is up to you, how you react to something, because you need to look very carefully at words like that, your reaction, because it is an action of Ray. It's one of the two names. Ray and L are or Ra and L are interchangeable. You've got to be sure which one is being spoken about when you see EL or AR or RA or even LE, because these things work both ways. Also, take the word lunar. You've got an L and an R, and then you've got reversed, you've got Anu. Now, Anu is leader of the Anunnaki, but it is also the God within each and every one of you. There is multiple meanings to all these things, and I can explain these in so many different ways, but I'm going to leave off because we can go off on so many different tangents with this, and I can talk about this in so many different ways. But I think there is enough to explain one of the experiences I get with downloads. Now, what do I actually see is another question. Well, the best way I can describe that is it could be an image, it could be visualizing a word, it could be a sound, it could come through in any one of the senses, but you, shall we say, see it behind your third eye. That's actually the hardest thing, is trying to describe this with these Phoenician phonetics. We need to start moving more towards feeling and knowing rather than expressing through vocalization, because we are speaking a language that has been forced on us, which is not natural. Think also here with the Egyptian hieroglyphs, and notice they don't have any vowels. The vowels were added later because they change the meaning of things, and often they will knock a letter off the front of a word. So astrology is the study of stars, and astronomy is the study of stars, because the original word was astar. So they've knocked the A off and left you with star. It's been chopped off. So it's misleading all the time, and it's very important if you want to find something, you go to the root of the problem. So therefore you need to look at the root of these words. I jokingly said that maybe I should write a White's Law, a book of sorcery with the alternative meanings of every word. That could be quite interesting, quite a monumental task. Maybe I will start putting a few words and their alternative meanings together, because once you read things with the other meaning or seeing things from a different angle, you'll often see that what appears to be comedy, for example, is actually laughing at you. It appears to be humorous, but this is exactly the way deception works. I don't know how many of you know the saying, too many sweets are bad for you. Well, that is actually true, because if we go back to the official narrative of Victorian era history, you had things called jelly beans with nice bright shiny colours, and to give them that glossy coating they were coated in arsenic. So this is exactly the same way everything works. Something that appears to be good is often deceptive, because that is how evil works. It will never appear in its true form. It's a predator. It wants to sneak up. Just look at the way any predatory animal behaves. The last thing it wants is to be discovered. So a lot of these things are put out there as fear, because fear feeds on fear. I've said this before, but this is worth reiterating again. Fear feeds on fear. So when we're talking in terms of CCTVs and all these cameras everywhere, and we're living in George Orwell's 1984, don't be fooled by this. The predator is fearful of certain people, and it wants to know where they are and wants to know their movements. It's not that they can harm anybody that they know is a threat. It is more a case of they want to keep them off guard, they want to keep them silenced. So yes, they will shut YouTube channels down, they will shut Facebook accounts down, they will put you on bans for 30 days, but it's a pretty poor, pathetic effort when you consider the perceived sheer scale of what we're up against and the resources we have at our disposal. But magnetic energy, which is what you all have inside, is far stronger than anything that the superficial from the dark side, which is electricity, can throw at you. It takes magnetism to drive both electric and dielectric. Without the magnetism, they don't work. This is why it is so important to stay neutral and do not give an emotion, an energy motion, to either one way or the other to anything, because you are driving that evil force in doing so, unintentionally or intentionally. It doesn't matter, because it's all about duality with this. This is why we need to stay calm and stay balanced and stay neutral to everything. Because if you are neutral in balance, you can see both sides, but you are not influenced by it. You remain captain of your own vessel. Thank you.